Welcome to another fun-filled and exciting edition of Adam's Music Box, where today in 1978, an historic event happened organized by Bob Marley. It was a music festival, the One Love Peace Festival, that was intended to end the militant political violence that had raged for years in Jamaica between the two ruling factions of the country, the Jamaican Labour Party, which was led by a man called Edward Saiga. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. And then there was, of course, Michael Manley's party, the People's National Party, a leftist group where the Labour group was aligned with US interests. And there was a lot of money that was flowing on both sides and a lot of gang violence, militant violence on both sides. 2 years before this concert, violence associated with the politics of 1970s Jamaica almost caused Bob Marley to lose his life because militants in 76 in early December broke into his house with the intention to kill him. And although they did shoot him, he survived. Now, the proximate cause of that attempted assassination was that just 2 days later, Bob Marley and the Wailers were set to play at the Smile Jamaica concert, incidentally a music festival that was, well, concert that was designed to promote peace between warring political factions. But the warring political factions didn't want Marley to become this political figure that in many ways he already was. And that's where we truly see the importance of reggae as not just an important musical genre, but as a political and social movement for change. And there were many great reggae artists who were emblematic of this, but Bob Marley, because of his international superstar status, because of his unique and wonderful musicianship, he really represented someone who challenged the political status quo in Jamaica, a country where many international factions had and wanted to retain their hands on the proverbial prize, the resources and the land of the country. Now, Bob Marley was someone who was very much a figure of awe. He inspired people in his home country and around the world. And he did this because of several key messages that were behind his music. First, there was the religious message. Bob Marley is without a doubt the world's most well-known practitioner of the Rastafari religion. And this religion is a kind of syncretic belief that is one part Christian, one part Old Testament, and it believed that the emperor of Ethiopia, who reigned in from the late 19th into the 20th century, he had a very long reign. In fact, I'll get those dates for you if you'll just bear with me a moment, because he lived to be a quite old age. So he was born in 1892, and his reign, pardon me, began in 1930, and it ended in 74 when the Derg, a radical communist group, took over the country in a revolution. But throughout Selassie's life, he lived to be quite old. He died in 1975, just a year after he was overthrown. But throughout his life, he was considered a messiah among the Rastafari. And although the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, of which Selassie was a member, didn't recognize this, he was always sympathetic to the spiritual beliefs of the Rastas, and even visited Jamaica in a move that was seen as a kind of spiritual homecoming in the eyes of the Rastas. So there was that. There was the religious aspect of Bob Marley. Then there was the Pan-African ideology of Bob Marley, the idea that peoples in Africa and those of African descent, whether in the Caribbean, North America, or elsewhere, should have a united movement, a united societal, cultural, and even political movement. And this was, of course, an idea championed in the early 20th century by the historian, philosopher, and political activist Marcus Garvey. And then the third element to Bob Marley was his idea of worldly or temporal peace. And this idea, I think, was influenced by both his spiritual side and his political Pan-African side. And there were many people that, of course, wanted this not to be communicated through the music, because, well, for people outside of Jamaica or outside of the Rasta religion or outside of his broader Pan-African movement, his ideology about Pan-African liberation, Bob Marley was considered a great entertainer whose lyrics stimulated thought at times, soothed at times, elevated one spiritually at times. But the dead seriousness of this message in the eyes of the political elite of Jamaica was sometimes missed by his fans abroad, but it certainly wasn't something that was missed by those in Jamaica, which is why he was nearly a fatal casualty of the political violence. Luckily, he was only a non-fatal casualty of that political violence. So back to 1976. He was shot on the 3rd of December, but he made good on his promise to perform on the 5th of December. Because of his injuries, he was only going to perform one song, but in total, the Bob Marley and the Wailers set went for an hour and a half. And it was that occasion that really inspired him to do more and more to try to create peace and unity. Unity insofar as he wanted politics to be conducted on lines that one would call civil rather than militant. And that was his main goal. Not to say that he actively wants a sort of unity government where all factions come together, but that he wants the factions to make commitments against violence. And that was something that he in many ways began to accomplish in 1978 when he got these two rival political leaders whose militant factions caused so much death and chaos in the country. He got them to shake hands in 1978, which in many ways is considered the apotheosis of Marley's career. He was a man whose life ended far too soon. In any case, he died in the early 1980s, only several years after this concert. But his legacy is one that continues to live on. He continues to be one of the most listened to artists in the entire world. And it's not difficult to see why. He was a musical pioneer of a genre. He helped bring that genre, reggae, out of Jamaica and into the world, which is not something that's easily done. He was a religious leader, a political leader, not in the party political sense, but in the ideological sense. And he was someone whose spiritual message and whose deeply humane message continues to touch people the world over, even those who don't listen to other music from his era, and even those who don't listen to other great reggae artists from his era or in the contemporary period. As his famed and top-selling compilation sells, he truly is a legend, but this legendary status goes well beyond his position in the music industry. He was a great social fighter, and I think that and his spiritual side are ultimately legacies that stand inseparable from that of his musical legacy. Like, subscribe, we will see you next time. Take care.